Hi guys, it is a beautiful Thursday morning here in Winter Park, and I wanted to talk to you guys about my methodology and the 7 concepts that kind of make the whole thing, and it kind of go into explanations of why I chose these 7 things. And each one kind of builds upon itself, okay? So there's no greater one than any other, and so they all build upon each other to serve the greater whole, okay? So when I'm explaining these, you'll see what I'm talking about, and they all kind of intertwine and play off of each other because they are so important. And I think that's why most people, they tend to forget about some of these things, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're just disregarding it. It's just that if you don't know about it, then you just don't know. But bringing these into light, I think our sport needs to be looking at these more and taking it more seriously, because there's a lot of things that I hear in interviews and that I read and research just from other sports, and it seems like our training regimen is kind of behind, or it just doesn't make sense. So when I'm going through, just kind of think about what you're doing and what you could be doing and how that could impact your training. So our first one is posture. And this is something that I look for mostly in new clients, but you can see this just by people watching. And it falls into a lot of different categories because it affects so many different things. So our first one, when we're talking about posture, is more so, are we fighting against our own bodies? Okay, so we've heard of muscular imbalances, fascia, tension throughout the body can really play a part in how we move, or potential injuries. And so if you look at, let's say the hips, okay? So your hips, if you have anterior pelvic tilt, which is where your hips tilt forward, your hip flexors tend to be tight in the front, lower back is tight, and those are both shortened, okay? And so when you get to the opposite side of things, you start looking at the core, the trunk, and that's loose. So the transverse abdominis and those obliques tend to be a little loose in there. And then your glutes are lengthened as well, and those are just not even working right. Okay, so all of these things start to add up, and there's tension throughout the fascia and tension throughout the muscle that plays a big part in how your body works as you move. So performance-wise, physically, we need to start looking at posture and making sure that's the foundation and the groundwork. Okay, but then you move to the upper body and you start looking at the posture with the shoulders. So if you've ever seen somebody with a forward head, their shoulders are rolled in, things like that, that's going to start affecting their breath. Okay, so when we start taking short, little shallow breaths, we're not getting oxygen to the brain, to the muscles. So again, our performance suffers. And then you start looking at body language. And this is something that's interesting. When you start to have all of this flexed and forward head lean and shoulders rolled forward, it almost affects our posture, and it affects our body language, and that in turn affects our mentality. So you can tell a lot by if a person's scared or nervous or anything like that, and that plays a huge part when you start looking at the mental game. So something to think about with posture, okay? A couple of different things. All right, so the second one is breath, okay? And I just kind of touched on that with the posture, but breath is so important because that's how we get oxygen to our brains, to our muscles. And I think we're so used to overlooking it just because it's such a subconscious thing where, oh, I breathe, I don't need to work on that. Well, go ahead and do a series of Wim Hof breathing techniques, and then come talk to me afterwards and see how you feel. It's amazing what you can do with just your breath and how you hold it, how you exhale, how you inhale. So if you're becoming more conscious and more aware of how you're breathing, you'll start to be aware of your body in general, how you're feeling, self-talk. So again, it kind of plays off itself into other categories. But more importantly, when we start to breathe correctly, we can respirate with more intention and have our cells working like they should. Our blood lactate levels, our blood pH levels start to shift to a more alkaline state. So our neurotransmitters, our nervous system, things start to work a lot better when we have a higher pH. So if we're going to start to affect our body chemistry just by breathing, okay, imagine the performance gains from that. And not only performance, but the mental side of things, okay? If you can focus on your breathing during a moto, more than likely that arm pump's going to start to alleviate, you're going to have more focus, you're going to ride better. So just by breathing more efficiently and breathing through your belly as opposed to your chest makes a huge difference. And I'll go into this a little bit more detail, but let's start thinking about how we're breathing and paying attention to it. Okay, so our next one is temperature. And when I say this, most people think just doing an ice bath in between motos or at the end of a workout or something, and that's good. But I think if we do daily exposure to colder temperatures, research has actually shown that there's a lot of benefit with that. So anti-inflammatory properties, our immune system is boosted, and our blood vessels become a little bit more efficient in how they contract and dilate. So we can maintain our core temperature a little bit better even in warmer or cooler temperatures. So daily exposure to different temperatures can really play a big part in our performance. And it's funny because a lot of mental aspects come into play as well. So if you can kind of build up into these smaller, shorter duration cold showers, and you keep going with it, you get used to it, then you go longer, a little bit colder, and finally you can do ice baths every day if you want to. But not only is there a physiological benefit to all of this, but you can also see the benefits mentally. So if you get used to this discomfort every day, then it challenges you to say, okay, well, I'm used to discomfort. Let's see what else I can do. So the cold showers, I recommend doing every day. And in addition to this, there's also been research showing that sitting in a sauna after workouts can actually help with lean tissue growth. So I have to do a little bit more research on that, but again, I think just exposing ourselves to a wide range of temperatures really stresses the body. That's super beneficial, and most people just don't take advantage of. Fourth one is fuel. So if we can fuel ourselves properly, obviously we're going to have greater gains of performance, cognitive ability, everything like that. But looking at it more in a deeper sense, I think that if you just go past the macronutrient system, so how many grams of protein, carbs, and fats are you consuming each day, and you start looking at vitamins and minerals a little bit more in depth, you start to see that you can prime your body for more efficiency. Okay, so you can eat all the protein in the world, but if your body's not gonna consume that and uptake that properly, then you're only utilizing a certain percentage of that. So we need to start looking at eating good quality foods that are in season, lots of variety, so we're getting lots of vitamins and minerals, and then also looking at water. Okay, water is huge because, I mean, obviously our huge portion of our body percentage is water. You taught that in grade school, but I think having good quality water and making sure that you are properly hydrated makes a huge difference. I saw a statistic the other day that even just being 10% dehydrated, or excuse me, a couple percent, it was like 5 or 6% dehydrated, your muscle function decreases by 10%. That's huge. That is huge, especially if you're in higher heart rate ranges when you're going through a moto. Things are intense, so if you have less performance before you even start the bike, that's not good. So having good quality food that's seasonal, lots of variety, good quality water like spring water, and just being hydrated. All of these little things add up to the big picture. So let's stop thinking about more so just protein and carbs and fats. But are we getting enough vegetables? Are we eating good quality organic foods? That's what's important. Okay, so the next one is perception. Perception has to deal with your mentality. And it's so funny, if you listen to guys on the podium, they say, oh, well, I just need to get a little bit more speed, a little bit more confidence. Where does confidence come from? Okay, how the hell at that level are you supposed to gain more confidence? What, work on your starts so your starts are more confident? No, okay. Let's break it down into simple steps that everybody can take every single day that add up, okay? First of all, I think meditation is huge. A lot of people underestimate meditation. They kind of think it's woo-woo or for Buddhist monks. If you meditate every day and or even let's take a step back. Let's say you just sit down for 5 minutes and you think about what you're thinking, okay? Just observe how many thoughts are running through your head. It's so funny when you lay your head down at night and you're trying to go to sleep, you hear that mental chatter. Okay, you'll come up with things from years ago that have no relevance to right now. It's like, why am I thinking about that? Okay, this is, first of all, because there's so many distractions now. Dopamine hits from our Facebook feed, our Instagram feeds. Everything's so quick and so short, and it's meant to make you come back, so you're always just like looking around, distracted. If you can settle your mind and you can start being aware of your self-talk, your posture, and how you're holding yourself, it's amazing what a little bit of confidence will do for your riding. You know, and I think that's number one for a lot of folks who start to doubt themselves. You know, if you get on the line and you're like, holy shit, there's there's like 30 guys on this line, how am I going to pull a hole shot? That right there, you just defeated yourself before the gate dropped. Okay, if you can settle your mind, have some confidence in your self-talk, so being positive, it sounds stupid and silly, but it makes a huge difference. If our perception's right, the results will follow. All right, guys, the next one is recovery. And this goes a little bit more than just, okay, I'm gonna do a recovery bike ride for 45 minutes or an hour or whatever. Recovery goes more into the nervous system, your adrenals, your hormonal system, and again, we're looking at the entire system, not just an individual piece of the puzzle. So when you start looking at just individual pieces, things get left out and neglected. And so what we need to start thinking about is, yes, sleep. Okay, that's super important. I mean, if we're training and riding, 8 hours a night is mandatory. But we need to start thinking about how we're preparing our bodies to actually shut down and relax. And I think that goes with the breathing. That has a huge role in it. And, you know, as far as our mental distractions and things like that, but we're also looking at the preparation to kind of get ourselves away from technology in a way that's going to affect how our fight or flight response, or our parasympathetic nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system, because we're constantly amped up, and that in turn turns our breathing into chest breathing. Our adrenals are going, our hormones are going, and cortisol levels start spiking. And you know, it's easy to start overtraining when you're in the season, and it's hard to come back from that and start to slow things down and say, hey, we need to back off here. So recovery is super important, making sure, again, we're fueled properly, but you know, kind of taking ourselves away from technology for a little bit. You know, even at night, you know, you spend however long on Facebook or playing video games or just like doing random stuff on the internet. Disconnect, breathe a little bit, and start to prepare your body to really get good deep sleep so we can come back even stronger. Okay guys, last one is movement, and this is my favorite and probably everybody's favorite, because it's the one that you can see results from right in the mirror, right in front of you. And I think that it's more broad than we're looking at. Okay, so if you talk to a yoga instructor or even a martial artist, MMA guys, everything that they do is a practice. So they're looking at their yoga or their martial arts is not just a workout, but more so a practice. And I don't understand why we as a community are starting to kind of get away from that. It's more so like these Instagram fitness models or fitness wannabes are taking things just at first glance. Okay, your movement affects everything that you do on and off the bike. That's pretty obvious. Okay, but when you start looking at it from just a perspective of it's just a means to an end, that's when you start to come up short in a lot of things, because it's inconsistent, you're not taking it seriously, or you're just going balls to the wall for however long to get ready for a race, and then you just back off completely. Movement should be a practice done every day, whether you're stretching, whether you're mountain bike riding, road biking, you're actually going to the gym and doing some resistance training. It's what your body thrives on, and that's what biologically our bodies are shutting down, because people are just sitting around all day, they're not doing anything, and that's when you start looking at depression, anxiety, and then it kind of cascades from there. So if we can move every day, get outside, get some sunlight, that's really what is going to help you. So if you can move properly, you're going to be stronger, you're going to be more efficient with your movements, and you're going to work less hard. So you're working with your body instead of against it. Your cardiovascular endurance is going to increase. And so all of these things start to play a huge role just from daily practices, okay? So let's start thinking about it like that instead of a means to an end. All right, so there you have it. We've got those 7 pillars or 7 concepts to my methodology that I think everyone needs to start addressing to kind of complete themselves as a racer, as a human being. And so it doesn't matter if you're a vet rider in the plus 40 class or the next up and comer, okay? You need to start addressing everything because not everybody's doing this. If you can start to work on the things that not everybody's willing to or even knows about, then that's where progress is going to be made. That's where you start winning races, okay? So if you like this, share it, comment, subscribe, and go to my website. I have a newsletter where I do more in-depth articles on this stuff. And then if you're looking for online programs to get ready for some races, I sell those. I'll personalize workout programs for you and get you back on top to the podium. All right, I'll see you guys next time.